Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you're situated on this great, big, beautiful blue globe floating through the void of Yah's creation. TGIF, it's Friday, and as always, yours truly holding the media's feet to the fire because they propagandize, they gaslight, they flat out lie. And guess what, you guys? You won't be anymore. All right, here we go. Yeah, the weekend is almost upon us. I'm Dave vonKleist, yours truly, hosting the WTF Reports. I'm here, WTF, with the facts. And if those facts make you go, WTF, well, then so be it. Anyway, got a couple of issues I want to get to today. There's a lot of news going on. I don't know if you heard about it, but last week on Thursday, a week ago yesterday, there was an announcement from Goldman Sachs to all of its metal traders and the COMEX. They said, pack up your bags and your family and go to Singapore. What? Interesting. Why would they say that? I don't know. But it's also interesting that over the past weekend, there was a shutdown. For some reason, they had some sort of computer overheating problem with COMEX. And the silver trading and the gold trading was shut down. And I don't know what this means, but I find it just rather curious. I thought I'd bring that to your attention. All right, that's one thing that's in the news. Now, the other thing that's in the news, and we'll touch upon that, is this conflict now that's going on with Venezuela. Now, there's talk about us actually going in and basically go to war with them. Now, Maduro doesn't want that. And I can understand why. I mean, to face the might of the U.S. military coming in there, that wouldn't be too good. But there's a couple of things that I want to bring to your attention in that regard. Also, because it's Friday, I'm going to have open lines. If you want to join me, you're welcome to do so. The phone number here is 215-867-8255. So you can call in at any point if you'd like. You got something that you want to bring to the table, you're welcome to do so. This broadcast is brought to you in part by the Wave Watch. I'm not quite sure. This being Friday, it may be the last day that you can take advantage of the massive discounts that they've offered on the Wave Watch. Now, they're giving a 15% discount on a pre-order of the new Wave Watch yet to be released. It's the Wave Watch 2.2. Now, the Wave Watch 2.0 was released about a year ago. And they're having a clearance on those. And you can get, I believe that's 25% off of the Wave Watch that they've got available right now. And that's the one I'm using. Now, for those of you who got a Wave Watch a year or two ago, the square one, they're offering a 50% off on the SIM card that will update all the frequencies in your original Wave Watch. So, if you want to take advantage of these really generous discounts, please visit our website, TheWTFReports.com. Click on the sponsors page. Actually, if it's the Wave Watch, you'll see a pop-up there, and you can do whatever you want to do. You'll get the discounts accordingly. So, all right, that said, I want to get started here. Of course, the news is Venezuela. And there's a lot of very curious things that have happened. And I'd like to point out that Patrick Byrne was in an interview, and I'm going to share what he had to share on this particular. I forget who it was that was interviewing him, but he basically brought up some really, really interesting issues. So here's Patrick Byrne.
He's given stuff that made Mike Flynn turn white when he heard it. And it takes a lot to make Mike Flynn turn white. Let me tell you, it takes a lot to talk him.
So let's talk about some of that stuff that would make you turn white. He alludes to much of that. It was not a very long memo, but very detailed and substantive in what he says he and the Venezuelan government has done. I already highlighted the passage where he said there are spies that have been planted over decades in the United States in key positions, but along with that, we have American traitors. We have Americans who have taken money, diplomats and CIA officers, to assist the Chavez, then Maduro regimes, and some of them are still active. I am told he is more than willing to name names, and there are dozens. Let's start there, and then we'll get to the other explosive information he shares.
That's kind of interesting. Something that would curl General Flynn's toes. I wonder what that could be about. Well, it seems that the Dallas Express, I believe it is, released a story, and I think you might want to hear this. I'm following this. Let me see. It's a letter that a guy named Hugo Carvajal, I think that's right pronouncing, Carvajal, that he shared. Now, this guy is no slouch.
Hi, everyone. I'm with the Dallas Express, and straight from a U.S. federal prison cell, the man once called the most dangerous spy in Latin America has just sent President Trump a chilling 3-page confession. And he says Venezuela didn't just collapse into chaos. It declared war on America with drugs, gangs, spies, and even your vote. And the proof starts now. The Dallas Express has exclusively obtained a bombshell letter written by retired Venezuelan Major General Hugo Carvajal Barrios, once the powerful director of military intelligence for both Hugo Chavez and Nicolas Maduro, and a central figure in the notorious Cartel de los Sols. Extradited from Spain after years on the run, Carvajal pleaded guilty earlier this year to narco-terrorism conspiracy charges in New York federal court. Now, in a letter dated December 2nd, 2025, and through his attorney, a former senior Justice Department prosecutor, Robert Fatel, Carvajal said he is writing from prison to atone and to expose what he calls a decades-long state-sponsored campaign to target the United States. He describes the Maduro regime as a full-fledged narco-terror organization that deliberately weaponizes cocaine with help from Colombia's FARC guerrillas, ELN, Cuban intelligence, and Hezbollah. Wow. He says he was personally present when the regime created and later exported violent gangs, specifically Tren de Aragua, and took advantage of Biden-era open border policies to send thousands of armed operatives into American cities with orders to kidnap, extort, and kill. Carvajal further alleges 20 years of Venezuelan and Cuban infiltration inside U.S. institutions, including East Coast naval bases, and claims some American officials were paid to keep the regime in power. Now, in one of the most stunning sections of this letter, he states Smartmatic originated inside Venezuela as a tool to manipulate elections under his direct oversight. Technology later exported to the United States that he insists can be altered and has been used to rig votes. He closes by declaring full support for President Trump's Venezuela policy, calling it essential to American national security, and offering to deliver additional classified details to federal authorities. The U.S. government continues to offer a $50 million reward for Nicolas Maduro's arrest. Now, this is a rapidly developing story with massive national security implications. So for the complete, unedited letter, exclusive follow-up reporting, and real-time updates the moment they break, download the new Dallas Express app right now in your app store. Push notifications are on by default, so you'll never miss an update.
Wow. Wow, wowie, wow. That's pretty incredible stuff. That's pretty incredible stuff. So and I find it really curious that letter was released, and immediately afterwards, Maduro was in touch with President Trump saying, hey, look, I don't want to go to war. I don't want to go to war with you guys. Wow. Well, it seems that, according to that Dallas Express report, Venezuela has been waging war in the United States covertly for how many years now? And we can't forget about the 2020 election and the fact that many of those votes, many of the voting machines were indeed connected to the internet. And yes, many of these things were routed through Venezuela and also Germany. And oh gosh, there was another country involved as well. So maybe this whole thing about the 2020 election, and of course, once Biden got in, the open borders and all of the illegals coming across, and you just heard it, many of them, have not the best of intentions, and there are cells all over this country right now. So, I can't help but think that, maybe Venezuela has indeed been waging a covert war against the United States. So a lot of you folks out there screaming about these boats being blown up. Now, I don't advocate or condone people being killed, and blasted out of the water. However, we don't know what the heck that they're carrying and what they're bringing. So I just don't know. I'm on the fence on this particular issue, but there's no doubt whatsoever that Maduro, pretty much from what you heard in that letter, those are some pretty damning accusations. And again, the guy's name is Hugo Carvajal. Yeah, Hugo Carvajal. And he says he's got even more information. So we have to see how this is going to pan out. because that's some pretty scary stuff. Anyway, okay, yeah, so we've heard from Patrick Byrne in regard to Venezuela. We've heard about this guy, Hugo Carvajal. And anyway, so we're just going to have to see how this is going to unfold. Now, in other news, there is a sad story. A Lithuanian soldier. His name was Thomas. Let me see if I can pronounce his last name. Adzikauskas. Yeah, Adzikauskas. I think that's what it is. Thomas Adzikauskas. Anyway, he's a Lithuanian soldier who was doing work for the IDF. And it seems that he has basically unalived himself. So, and I had to do some editing on this particular audio clip, but this is rather interesting. Give a listen to this.
This is curious. So wait a second. That's not a Hebrew name. Let's tackle this, shall we? So this IOF soldier just killed himself. He specifically says this because of what he had to do on October 7th.
What?
What exactly did you do on October 7th? And you were a sniper commander. Who did you snipe that made you feel so guilty you had to kill yourself? Who did you shoot? I mean, I'm sure you've shot Palestinians before and you didn't kill yourself, right? Because you became a commander of a sniper unit, right? So who did you shoot on October 7th that made you feel so guilty you took your life, son? Who was it you fucking shot? We now know what happened on October 7th. We know that Israel knew in advance. We know that they pulled back their troops. We know that they let everything happen and then came in and massacred their own fucking people. Made up about the 40 dead babies, which has been proven false over and over and over again. You did this. You fucking killed your own people, you fucking huge piece of evil shit. You killed your own fucking people so you could legitimize a genocide, and that is why you took your own life. You took the trash out, son. You took the trash out.
Yeah, well, more and more is starting to come out about the October 7th issue. Of course, a little over 2 years ago, back in 2023. And maybe that's what Charlie Kirk was alluding to. Was there a stand-down order? Was there a stand-down order? Well, we do have recordings now of IDF soldiers. I played the audio. Of course, they were speaking in their own language, but we did get it translated. And they got the call at around 5:30 in the morning, basically telling them to stand down. So now it's now looking more and more like, yes, the Hannibal directive was implemented on October 7th. Now, again, I've mentioned this many, many times, and I'll continue to mention it. There is a documentary out there, and it's called, let me see, where is it? Let me see, where did it go? It's over here someplace. Oh, yeah. Israel was behind the attacks on October 7th, 2023, and it was an inside job. And you can find it on Rumble. And you can just type in John Hankey, that's Hankey, John Hankey. And again, it's called Israel Was Behind the Attacks of October 7, 2023, and it was an inside job. A documentary. And yes, there are interviews there of ID soldiers, intelligence people. There's plenty of footage there. And the more you look at it, the more you understand why Charlie Kirk was questioning what happened on October 7th. Now, speaking of Charlie Kirk, of course, the debate, shall I say, if it's that, maybe it's a war of words, it's not even a debate anymore, that Candace Owens yes, she's being attacked. All kinds of people attacking her for simply wanting to find out who killed her best friend. And yes, I do believe that Candace and Charlie had a very special, loving, platonic relationship. I've seen the videos of the two of them interacting, and they truly enjoyed each other's company. They made each other laugh, and I do believe there was a fantastic chemistry between the two of them. Now, there's other issues that are going on. Now, I have not been able to confirm this. I was searching for it, but I couldn't find it. But there have been reports that a couple of days before Charlie Kirk was assassinated, that there had been a filing for an annulment of marriage between Charlie and Erika Kirk. Now, some other people have said it was a filing for divorce. Now, I don't know. I can't get confirmation on that. If anybody out there can get confirmation, I would love to know. So if that's true, well, that would bring even more credence to the argument that maybe, just maybe, Charlie had found out that Erika had a very sordid past. Maybe Charlie had figured out the connections between Erika's mom and Erika's dad and the huge corporations that they were affiliated with. This is some scary stuff that we're talking about here. But the bottom line here is that, a lot of people have been doing some research into Erika's background. And, the Romanian Angels issue. Yeah, this whole thing about this project to help the Romanian children when, in fact, it was something else altogether. Now, Ryan Mata is one of many other independent researchers that have been looking into Erika Kirk's past. And the more you look, the more you find. And I want to share what they found. Apparently, there is an affidavit that was released that was very, very revealing. Here's Ryan Mata.
I don't know if you guys have seen this yet, but Destiny Renendez just dropped the bombshell affidavit, translated to English, from the military base where Erika Kirk's Romanian Angels were being investigated for child trafficking or alleged child sex trafficking. So check this out. You're going to want to check out this affidavit. It's absolutely mind-blowing. So check this out. It says the criminals seek to establish the brothel that served U.S. military in the military base of UMO 18737 in M. Cognizant in the year of 2015 to 2012, which has been Trump Meadows for several months. And then it goes on to say, the building, according to the statement, their blank, which is censored out, their censor commander, in which several were sexually exploited young women forced to have sex with the U.S. military. Among them were some minors who were under guard, according to the statements, U.S. Army civilian employees at the Cognate base. So you literally have the affidavit right here that tells you that allegedly Erika Kirk's Romanian Angels organization was tied directly to a U.S. military base in Romania where they were literally sex trafficking children. They built a brothel where the women were kept under guard on a U.S. military base. And in Romania, the only one who can charge a U.S. person is who? The United States. So when you guys wonder why the hell we give billions of dollars to these third world countries, it's most likely because the United States military is involved with running child trafficking operations around this entire effing country. You think people like Mark Meadows weren't wearing high heels and walking around the Capitol because they weren't on tape f***ing children? Do you understand how rotten and corrupt our entire government is? CPS, our own government agency that's supposed to protect American children, is literally kidnapping 480,000 children from their parents who love them. And if you don't believe me, stay tuned for my new documentary called Never in America. I had to go out of the country. I'm down here in El Salvador right now because we're getting ready to release my new film. And I can't do it in my own country because I feel like they'll kill me once I start promoting it. And we're already trending #1 on Twitter last week. So buckle up. We're coming with the heat. We out.
Yeah, I can't wait to see his new documentary coming out. And again, I point out to a lot of you folks out there that are attacking Candace Owens, especially Tim Pool. Now, Tim Pool, we all know that he made the trip over there to the blue state, and he sat down with the guy who's in charge of the blue state. And we know that a lot of it wasn't just him, it was several other media influencers who were brought over there, and I'm not quite sure what happened there. But when they got back, oh my gosh, they're 100% on board with Israel. And anybody who dares to criticize or draw attention to some of the activities of Israel, boy, you're going to face the wrath of these social media influencers. So I have to ask the question, which is it, Tim Pool? Oh, where did it go?
Blackmail.
Oh, there we go. Let's try that again.
Bribery, coercion, blackmail.
Yeah, there we go. So which is it? Now, I'm not saying for sure that any one of those apply, but I can't help but notice that, of course, Charlie Kirk, he was instrumental in getting Donald Trump reelected in the last election cycle last year. Okay, we know that he had helped TPUSA bring together all the conservative young kids and get, like I said, he pretty much was responsible for getting Donald Trump reelected with all of his efforts. However, in the past month, in the several months before he was unalived, we all know that he was taking a real hard look at some of the undue influence that this blue state has over our country. And apparently you're not allowed to do that. Now, you take a look at, all of the media. Now, we've all talked about this in the past. You take a look at, CBS, NBC, ABC, CNN, Fox. You look at all of the people who are in powerful positions in those networks, in those news organizations, and they all have a commonality, something in common. What do you suppose that is? They all have that blue star right next to them. And then you look at, Pfizer. Again, blue star all over the place. As a matter of fact, let me see if I can find this. There was one young man who was at a town meeting, and the subject, of course, was what was going on with the pandemic. And let me see if I can find it here. There's another post that's got to be. Well, I'll tell you what, before I do that, I want to get to this. We were just talking about TPUSA and Charlie Kirk and some of the anomalies that were going on. Charlie was going to have the TPUSA audited. And Project Constitution has been doing an amazing job researching the finances. And I played a couple of clips of those. Maybe I should get to those again. But here's a little comment from somebody who was working with Charlie Kirk, somebody who was in TPUSA. Here's what he had to say.
My name is Joshua Peterson. I worked for Turning Point USA and Turning Point USA Faith, and I knew Charlie Kirk personally. I want to say on the record that there was a inner circle at Turning Point USA that was constantly working against Charlie and his interests and what he wanted to do, as well as there was a Jewish influence in Turning Point that he was not very fond of, that he wanted to get rid of. He tried doing this, he tried creating a Doge department, and he gets. Another thing that makes me believe this inner circle was constantly working against Charlie was because of the fact that he had a whole entire branch of Turning Point that he had no idea about, and that was the stock market branch. Now, the thing about this branch is it's been getting millions of dollars poured into it over the past 4 years now, and that's been seen through their latest tax returns, which were also filed late, which is weird, but that's a topic for another time. This stock market group that Turning Point has been throwing millions of dollars into the stock market for the past 4 years now, and Charlie Kirk had no knowledge of that whatsoever. Now, if you also look into it a little bit deeper, if you look at the staff on that branch specifically, it says zero. It says there's nobody employed in that branch, yet they're pouring $5 million into funds for employees. Make it make sense. That sounds like money to me. It sounds like there's some pyramid scheme going on behind the scenes at Turning Point that Charlie did not know about originally, and I think that he was planning to expose that, and that's ultimately what got him.
Yeah, interesting. And of course, like I was saying, the people who are researching this, the people who are digging into this whole nasty, horrendous situation at TPUSA. Of course, if you're digging in there, well, then you need to be silenced. Now, of course, TPUSA has been telling Candace Owens says, hey, look, I'll lay it out there. I'll debate you anytime, any place. And they said, okay, well, I'll tell you what, on December 15th, you have to be in our studios in person. And she said, well, wait a second. Why do I have to be in your studio? We already know that there have been threats upon my life. We already know that there is some outside group that has been influencing TPUSA, the donors. That's what Charlie was pushing back against. And who did those donors represent? And who, if there is a hit squad out there to get Candace, she's already mentioned the French, the Egyptians, and Israel. So how smart would it be for her to go into the enemy's den? Who knows what kind of a trap that they could have set for her? Of course, they wouldn't do anything, right there overtly, but I mean, they could plant something. I don't know. I hate to be conspiratorial about this, but I'm with Candace on this. I think that there's no reason why they can't connect with Zoom. They could connect and have a remote conversation live and put it out there live on TPUSA. Go ahead, throw it out there. And on Candace Owens, have it live. Boy, that would bring in a huge viewership, don't you think? But no, they don't want to do that. And of course, now they're saying, well, she's got cold feet. Now she's been making all this stuff up. I'm sorry. I'm with Candace on this one. There are just too many problems that were brought to the table by Charlie Kirk, I might add, that need to be addressed. And we all know that that the individuals or the forces behind all of this influence are pretty much ruthless. They'll do just any doggone thing that they want. So I can't blame Candace for doing what she's doing. So anyway, let's see. Okay, yeah, it's coming up on the bottom of the hour. As a matter of fact, it's 33 minutes past the hour. Again, the phone number here if you want to join me, Candace, not Candace, Cynthia. There we go. 215-867-8255. Again, 215-867-8255. Okay, let me see. What else did I have here? I got several different things I was going to get to. Yeah, this thing with Venezuela, this is getting really, really interesting. But we're going to have to keep an eye on that because I think this is going to be, every day there's going to be something new. But anyway, getting back to this whole thing about the undue influence that certain organizations have, and of course, if you draw attention like I just did to the mainstream media, the networks, big pharma, big agra and stuff like that, and what foreign entity has influence over those. A lot of folks are saying, hey, we might as well face it. We are now the United States of Israel. And when you look at how many people are in Congress are being paid, not bribed, lobbied. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, they're being lobbied by Blue State. So who could it be? Oh, all right, there she is. I knew you were out there listening. Hey, Cynthia, welcome. I recognize your number. How you doing on this Friday?
Well, pretty good. And your words, you just took the words right out of my mouth, which is that we have so many members of Congress who are compromised. Yeah. That we can't get change in this country until we change out that Congress.
Yeah.
There's an adage that politicians, kind of like babies with diapers on, need to be changed out periodically.
Yeah, I think it was Mark Twain that said that.
Beg your pardon?
I think Mark Twain said that.
Oh, okay. I'll go with that. So let's do a constitutional moment, which is that the Constitution was written for people to have representation at the rate of one representative for every 30,000 persons. Mm-hmm. If it goes to 1,000 persons, you split it into two. Yeah. You maximum 30,000 persons for each representative. So, they just did this redistricting thing. Mm-hmm. Went to this court, and people said, "Oh, that's a victory." And to me, that's not a victory because the Supreme Court doesn't seem to understand the Constitution, which is not surprising because the ratification debates, which is when they went and argued for voting for the Constitution, which were written down, they were not distributed around, and the schools of law didn't teach them. They taught those Federalist Papers, which are actually documents that were published in papers. They're not official documents, but people in law schools think that they are, and professors think they are, and you have to change that perception by using those ratification debates. So people at the county level can start petitioning that the Constitution will be obeyed and that the oath of office, which they're every elected rep in the United States has to agree to that oath of office, which is to defend the Constitution. Say, well, this is the Constitution, this is the original one, and that's the one we want honored, and we want you to start petitioning the state legislature to resume that rate of representation. And what's going to end up is we're going to need a constitutional amendment that your rep can stay and vote in office, but especially vote in the home district in a public venue. So there's no weaseling with lobbyists, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, when people start talking about a constitutional amendment and the Constitutional Convention, I get really worried because I don't trust these people if they're going to crack that egg open. I don't trust them as far as I could throw a Greyhound bus.
Right. So. But what you do have to do is get the parts of the Constitution that are not being honored into enforcement, and then deal with the fact that thousands of people, which will be that, I mean, we'll have a lot of representatives, can't go to Washington, D.C. and live. Well, I mean, they could, but it will be a big mess. You really want them at home in your home district. Why do they need to be in Washington?
Yeah.
Well, the Constitution required them to meet there, so that will have to be changed.
Well, yeah. I suppose, they could have a big Zoom meeting, but, I mean, can you imagine 535 members of Congress on Zoom? No.
Actually, they tried that during the COVID lockdowns, and the federal court said, no, you can't do that. It has to be in person. Mm-hmm. So maybe they can just fly back to do the voting in person and then fly back home, but not live there. I don't know any reason why they have to live there other than to be subjected to a standard of living that they can't afford on that $175,000, which, by the way, is supposed to be a per diem, which means if they're not working on weekends, they're not supposed to be paid for the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
There's not supposed to be a health benefit. That's not enumerated in the Constitution. They can't just vote to give it themselves. Well, they did, and we need to require them to pay that back to the Treasury and ask the estates of the deceased members of Congress to pay it back because it was fraud. They weren't actually allowed to do that under the Constitution. And their retirement funds? Oh, no, no way. They're apparently being vested after 5 years. Give me a break. No.
Yeah.
If you want, you can set up your own IRA. You don't have to have the taxpayers pay for your retirement. So we have a lot of little picky things to go after and big things to go after, like NATO. If we petition that they have to remove us from NATO because it is not it's not constitutional because it violates our sovereignty, they can drag us into a war with that agreement that we entered NATO with, and we need Norfolk back. Trump did this. Trump handed over Norfolk to NATO.
Yeah.
No way. I don't agree with that one little bit. And as we see NATO trying to drag us into a war in Ukraine, we don't need to be in another world war. We need to stay home and take care of business. So I got my rant in for the day, dear.
Okay, well, that's always good. All right, I don't... Go ahead.
I may call in with more of these constitutional moments, if that's okay.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. It scares me when they start talking about making a constitutional amendment because you have to have a constitutional convention. And once you do that, everything is on the table. They could cut, slash, and burn anything that they want. And I don't trust these people, like I said, as far as I could throw a Greyhound bus. So, especially when they keep voting themselves more pay raises and everything like that. The pay rate for the American people has been just pretty much flat for the past 20, 30 years. And yet the Congress, man, they get all of the free perks. They serve one term, and they're retired for life. They have free health care, premium health care. They get all of the perks and bennies and benefits and all that kind of stuff. And meanwhile, American people are busy looking for a second nickel, so they have two of them to rub together. It's ridiculous.
So Congress can can come up with an amendment, and then it's sent to the state legislatures to be voted on. So if you get the people in the Congress under the one rep for every 30,000 persons to the House, then, there's a chance we can avoid that convention.
Well, I don't know. I said, 30 years ago when I started my talk radio career, I said, folks, we got two choices. We either have to have a knockdown, drag them out, revolution, or we're going to have to basically have patience, sit back, and wait for this whole thing to collapse under the weight of its own corruption. And that's sort of what we're watching. We're watching because most Americans are more concerned with the upcoming basketball playoffs and football and Netflix and all the other stuff. People they have no clue, absolutely clue. You try to talk about real issues with most people and they give you the fluoride stare. They don't know what you're talking about. You might as well be talking Swahili.
Well, you said the right statement. You said the fluoride stare.
Yeah.
Fluoride, all the toxic chemicals in their food, and now we have to look at the Morgellons issue. That is, it's something that's actually infiltrated the entire body.
Mm-hmm.
Of causing somebody to commit a crime.
Mm-hmm.
Sirhan certainly was not the perpetrator of that crime. He was present and he had a gun up, but he was obviously under the influence of something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well,
right?
We're always dealing with this lone shooter BS. Lee Harvey Oswald, crazy lone shooter. Sirhan, lone shooter, crazy lone shooter. John Lennon, another crazy lone shooter. And now we've got Tyler Robinson. And there are so many people going after Candace Owens and all the other independent researchers because they are not buying the lone shooter horse hockey. They want to look outside of the cage, and I don't blame them. So, anyway. All right, you got any more rants for me?
Well, I just want to say the resource I use for constitutional issues is reclaimingtherepublic.org.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
He comes on in the afternoon right before your rerun, which, by the way, I realized you didn't have yesterday's on yesterday afternoon, did you?
No, there was a glitch. There was some problem here, and I don't know if I'm experiencing that problem again. Oh, the levels changed again. This is weird because I recorded. What happens when I do the show, I record it, and then I shoot it over to my webmaster, and he gets it posted there. Now, I also, when I'm on the air, it's recorded at the network, and then it goes into the replay. Now, what happened yesterday, I don't know what happened, but somehow the levels were really bad. And so I contacted Scott at Red State, and I asked him, I said, hey, look, can you send me a copy of the show because the recording didn't work on my end? And he says, well, it didn't work on my end either. I said, what? So that's why he had a replay. For some reason, there was a glitch, I don't know, a gremlin in the works or something like that. But, we've been having some issues with recording. As a matter of fact, halfway through this broadcast, I've been messing with these levels, trying to figure out why the levels are so low. And while I was talking to you, all of a sudden they popped up again. So everything seems to be fine now. I don't know. We'll see. So, and once in a while, I do have a replay. I've got stuff going on my end of the world here. That sometimes, being on the air at this particular time makes it real difficult. So once in a while, I'll do a replay. Oh.
Okay.
Anyways,
right.
So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Okay.
All right, my dear. Well, listen, you have a great weekend, okay? Stay safe, stay free. Okay?
Bye-bye.
Okay, ciao. All right, thank you. Okay, again, if anybody else wants to join the conversation, you're welcome to do so. 215-867-8255. Now, again, getting back to this issue about Venezuela and Maduro and this letter that was it was released, what was it, December 2nd, 3 days ago? And from Hugo Carvajal, and basically spelling out all the skullduggery that Venezuela has been basically doing to the United States. I mean, conducting a covert war against the United States. So on many different things, not just the drugs, but also the voting thing. Yeah, the voting machines How did that work? And in 2020, all of those voting machines all across the country, yes, they were attached or connected to the internet. Yes, they were. Yeah, you're a conspiracy. Shut up, sit down. So anyway, so they've been conducting a covert war. We're going to have to see what's going to happen. So I don't know which way to go, but I do know the powers that be, they love war. I mean, they're really pushing for war. And the powers that be, getting back to this issue about, whether it was Tyler Robinson, you can tell who the idiots are out there because they're still pushing the left. Oh, he was a crazy leftist and he had a gay boyfriend that was going to transition and stuff. It's those lefties. That's what it was. Those liberal lefties that killed Charlie Kirk. Yeah, they want to have a right versus left conflict. They want a civil war. Don't let them, pull you into that. It's not a horizontal right versus left issue. What the issue is from the bottom to the top. We have to go after the people who are pulling the strings on both parties, the liberals and the conservatives, the Democrats and the Republicans. Okay? Now, who do you suppose would be in a position to pull or push or, do whatever they want to do to both parties? Again, we go back to the influencers. Those three magic words:
bribery, coercion, blackmail.
Now, who's in a position to exercise any one of those methods there? Yes, we are an occupied country. I don't know how we're going to get unoccupied because they don't even want you talking about it. Anybody who does talk about it is going to get blasted and labeled and attacked and ridiculed and insulted, et cetera, et cetera. Jimmy Dore, bless his heart, he brings up a really good point. Because as soon as you criticize anything that Israel is doing, you don't have to go after Jews. You can just criticize Israel, and that's what Charlie Kirk was saying. He says, I can't criticize Israel, otherwise they're calling him an anti-Semite. Well, Jimmy Dore spelled it out very easily.
They say anti-Semitism is on the rise. No, it's just anti-Israel. And if it is on the rise, it's because of what Israel's doing and conflating Zionism with Judaism.
Bingo.
That's the irony there. By the way, Zionism could not exist without anti-Semitism, which is why they're always on the look for it, and they have to invent it if it doesn't exist, which is why they're the king of false flags. Israel is the king of doing false flags, bombing people, blaming it on Arabs, and claiming that's anti-Semitic, that they're doing it because they're Jews. They say anti-Semitism is on the rise. No, it's just anti-Israel.
Yeah, that's basically what it is. And you remember about a month ago that Bibi Netanyahu was put out a statement, he says, hey, look at Iran. They've got new technology now, and they can reach out. They have super long-range missiles. He says, can you imagine if Iran was to launch a missile and it would go to New York or D.C., Mar-a-Lago? He was just hinting at that. Now, again, when you're pulling off a false flag, you do something and you blame it on somebody else. Do you think they're going to try to do that again? This is why they keep going after Iran. Anyway, Jimmy Dore spelled it right out. Yep, he sure did. And let me see, there was something else that I wanted to share here. Where is it? I'm just scrolling as quick as I can here. Oh, I forgot about that document. Yeah. But, anyway. Here's, I think I played this yesterday. Maybe I didn't, but I'm going to play it again. A lot of Jews, they're getting really ticked off at the Zionists, at Israel. They're all saying that there's a rise in global anti-Semitism. Everybody is hating Jews all over the world. They're hating the Jews. Well, that's because of the actions of the Zionists. And a lot of Jews condemn the Zionists. And it's the actions being taken by Bibi Netanyahu and his murderous regime, which is creating all this animosity towards those of the Jewish persuasion. Now, there are two different, as far as I'm concerned, there are two different Jews. There are the remnant, which are the real Old Testament Jews who follow the Ten Commandments. And then there are the false Jews. The ones that are the Talmudic Jews, okay? They're two different animals, two different ones, okay? But here's this guy explaining why he doesn't feel safe.
As a Jewish person, I don't feel safe right now. It's because of the crimes of the state of Israel. Don't get it twisted. It's not that Israel is unsafe because it's Jewish. Jews are unsafe because of Israel. That's what happens when a country uses Judaism as a cover for its ongoing oppression, dispossession, dehumanization, and killing of the Palestinian people. It puts Jews everywhere in danger. Free Palestine.
Oh, now there's a Jew saying free Palestine. What do you think of that, BB? I'm telling you, there's a lot of folks out there. I've been saying it for a long time. This isn't hatred towards Jews. It's hatred towards Zionists. And, they're doing everything that they can to connect Zionism with Judaism. They are two different things. One is a religion. The other is political dogma. So, I don't know how to get folks to understand that they are not the same. It's not just apples and oranges. It's apples and power tools. Two totally different animals. Anyway, getting back to this thing about Venezuela, there are a lot of folks out there, the globalists, they know doggone well where their bread gets buttered. They like to have that money. The military industrial complex. As a matter of fact, I'm going to play a song here. It's called Addicted to War. As a matter of fact, I got another, let me see, here it is, an editorial I wrote 25 years ago. Maybe if I have time, I'll share that with you, but let me see. Okay, this is my own take. I sort of like inspired by Robert Plant. You might recognize the musical style. But the words are true. 20 years old, but they still stand today. Well, that sounds terrible. I don't know what's going on with that. No, I tell you what, I'm going to take that out of there. For some reason, that sounds all distorted, and I can't figure out why. Still having these audio problems. That's all right. I'll share with you with something I wrote 20 years ago, and it's if you go to the Wayback Machine and you could go to GulfWarVets.com. That website's not up anymore. I guess it went down about 15 years ago. But anyway. You go to GulfWarVets.com and go back to the early 2000s and you'll find it. But go to the editorials, got a bunch of them there. But I wrote this about 20 years ago, and I'll share it with you right now. In this time of nearly universal dissent and condemnation of the Bush administration's foreign policy and apparent mad dash towards war, we would have to be fools or in denial to think that the national media is not being utilized to promote propaganda to sway the American people into supporting some kind of military action. It has become common knowledge to those who have followed world events or any length of time that the international financial corporate elite puppet masters and the military-industrial complex have much to gain monetarily from a war, any war. It is the same individuals that have invested in the current administration through lobbying and campaign contributions that pay for the majority of the advertising in the major media. It is therefore not difficult to understand why war is being promoted with fervor akin to an advertising campaign to sell chia pets during the holiday season. On 9/11/2001, while the news networks were still debating about what kind of plane had hit the WTC, they simultaneously released the same file footage of Osama bin Laden, who had been trained, funded, and put into position of power by the CIA, and hence began a campaign to legitimize an attack on Afghanistan. Despite the reports that 15 of the 19 suspected terrorists were Saudis, coupled with the fact that the Bush administration refused to provide evidence linking the Taliban to the 9/11 attacks, Bush mounted an unbridled attack on the Afghanis. Over a year later, the convenient inability to locate Osama bin Laden now has the Bush administration focusing the compliant media attention on the old standby back pocket boogeyman, Saddam Hussein. Hussein enjoys the same background support as bin Laden, both having been supported and funded by the U.S. government during the era that George Bush Sr. had been director of the CIA, two-term vice president under Reagan, and president of the United States. Hussein and bin Laden both had reported business ties with the Bush family, the latter also tied to Vice President Dick Cheney and Tony Blair through the Carlyle Group with oil and pipeline interests. Yeah, by the way, bin Laden and his Taliban continued to receive millions of dollars of support under the current administration up to just a few months before the 9/11 attacks. Because of the world attention on the controversy of the first Gulf War, the lack of support and strong opposition to a regime change by the Bush administration has grown to the point that much of the world is beginning to see the U.S. under the Middle Eastern label as the Great Satan. As a result, the current administration now finds it necessary to refocus America's attention to North Korea, one of the other countries Bush has conveniently labeled as a member of the Axis of Evil. Neither Iraq nor North Korea have engaged themselves in acts of aggression against any country, and neither they or any other country would benefit from an act of terrorism in this country. Such an act would give the Bush administration the excuse that they so desperately need to legitimize a full-scale orgy of death aimed at anyone who would dare oppose their agenda. The Bush family dynasty regime has too many commitments, campaign promises, and investments to allow peace to continue unchecked. They need a war, any war. And there are those that believe that they will go to any length to instigate and or legitimize their desire to unleash the full might of the U.S. military somewhere, anywhere in the world. With this in mind, we must ask ourselves who would benefit from another domestic terrorist attack. The answer is too disturbing for most people to entertain. Common sense and critical thinking is broken out on a worldwide scale, and the people of the world are now realizing that the Holocaust so many said could never happen again is menacingly looming behind the window dressing of blind American patriotism, the same kind of blind patriotism seen in pre-World War II Germany. The fate of the entire free world may depend on the American people simply paying attention to something other than the Super Bowl this year and then doing something about it. This author doesn't think that's too much to ask, considering the dire consequences. Anyway, that's a little editorial that I wrote. It was 24 years ago. Holy mackerel, time goes by. Unbelievable. Anywho, okay, let me see. Do I have time? No, I don't have time to do that. Boy, that hour went by quickly. Holy mackerel. Anyway, let's see. I hope you all have a safe weekend. I've got a couple more shows. Yeah, I'm playing at the Conrad Mansion in Kalispell, and they're doing a recreation of the 1939 radio broadcast with Lionel Barrymore and Orson Welles. It's called A Christmas Carol. You know, the story of Ebenezer Scrooge, and I get to be the first ghost that comes to him, his dead partner, Jacob Marley. So, anyway, that said. There's the music. All right, folks, that's going to wrap it up for another week of the WTF Reports. Once again, I ask you that you do support this broadcast by doing some business with our advertisers. Go to TheWTFReports.com, click on the sponsors page, get more tank, and or get a Wave Watch, or get some merch. Either way. We appreciate your support. And if you're listening on BitChute or Rumble or YouTube or Facebook, click like, share, subscribe, and above all else, share it with your friends. Word of mouth is the best advertising. Okay, that said, the weekend is upon us. God bless you all. Stay safe. Stay free. And I'll see you Monday.